Cursed by their matriarch, her son is fading fast. Forsaken by her pack, a desperate Omega plunges into the forbidden darkness to beg the one man who can save him, the monstrous Shadow Walker. He has the power to heal the boy, but he demands a single unbreakable price, her hand in marriage. Prologue. The smell of death was in my son's room. It was a sick, sweet smell, like burnt honey and decay, and it clung to the blankets, his hair, my own clothes. I knelt by the small cot, my fingers tracing the black, spiderweb-thin lines that crept from my son's chest up his neck. The curse. It was pulsing, a slow, dark tide beneath his pale skin. Leo's chest barely moved. His breath was a tiny, wet whisper, each one a fresh tear in my own lungs. "Please," I whispered, pressing my forehead to his. He was so cold. "Please, Leo. Don't leave me. Don't you dare leave me." He'd been a happy, bright 7-year-old 3 weeks ago. Now he was a fragile shell, and the matriarch's magic was eating him from the inside out. I had just come from her. I had crawled, on my hands and knees, across the polished floor of the great hall. I had begged the pack matriarch, Eleonora, to save him, to undo what she had done. She had looked down at me, her silver-gray eyes as cold as the Montana winter outside. "Lena," she'd said, her voice smooth and reasonable, as if discussing the weather. "Your son is of the old blood. Your husband's blood. It was weak. The pack must be pure. What is weak must be purged. He is a child," I had wept, my voice raw. "He is an acceptable loss." Her words echoed in the silence of the sick room. An acceptable loss. My son. My life. I looked at the healer's potions on the bedside table, feverfew, crushed river pearls, wolf's bane, all useless. The pack's healers were terrified of this magic. They knew its source, and they wouldn't dare cross the matriarch. I was alone. A widowed Omega, a weak bloodline, a pariah in my own pack. My husband, Robert, had died 2 years ago, and with him, any protection I ever had. Now Eleonora was cleaning house. A sudden, violent shudder racked Leo's small body. His eyes, milky and unfocused, rolled back. A choked sound, half sob, half gasp, escaped his lips. The black lines on his neck pulsed faster. No. No. A new kind of cold, sharper than my grief, flooded my body. It was terror, but it was also resolve. If the pack wouldn't help me, I would go to the one the pack feared. If the matriarch was the pack's light, I would go to its shadow. There was one place, one person, forbidden to all of us. A name we only whispered in hushed, frightened tones. The Shadow Walker. An outcast alpha who lived in the Shadowlands, a dark, twisted part of our territory that no one ever entered and returned from. They said he was a monster. A boogeyman. A soul eater. They said he communed with the dark things between worlds. They said he demanded a price for his magic, a price that would cost you more than your life. Dealing with him was high treason. Eleonora would have me skinned and hung from the pack gates. I looked at my son. His breathing had stopped. "No," I said, my voice flat. I shook his shoulder. "Leo, breathe. Nothing. Breathe, damn you." I screamed, pounding my fist on his tiny, still chest. A small, rattling gasp. He was back. For now. But the next time, he wouldn't return. I had seconds. Minutes, maybe. I didn't think. I moved. I grabbed my heaviest cloak and wrapped Leo in it, bundling him against my chest. He weighed nothing. He was just bones and damp hair and the smell of the curse. I didn't take the main door. I went out his window, dropping 3 feet into the snowbank below. The cold bit at my ankles, but I didn't feel it. I ran. I ran past the quiet cabins of the pack, dark shapes against the snow. I didn't run toward the gates, toward the human world and its useless hospitals. I ran toward the woods. Toward the dark, northern edge of our territory, where the trees grew too close together and the snow was always black with shadow. The Shadowlands. My lungs burned. My heart hammered a rhythm of pure panic. Please God, let me make it, don't let him die. Leo was a cold, still weight in my arms. The air grew heavier. The trees, thick pines covered in snow, began to look wrong. Their branches twisted like grasping hands. The shadows on the ground seemed to stretch, to move, to writhe like living things. I had reached the border. I was running from one monster to beg for mercy from another. And I didn't care what he took from me, as long as he left my son with his life. Where are you watching this from? What's the weather like for you today? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this story, please don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single chapter. It really helps me out. Chapter 1. The Shadowlands were not just a place. They were a feeling. The moment I crossed the invisible line, the air changed. It became thick, heavy, and cold, sinking into my lungs like icy mud. The normal forest sounds, the scuttling of animals, the sigh of wind through pine died. Here, the only sound was the frantic crunch of my own boots in the blackened snow and the ragged gasp of my breathing. The shadows were alive. They clung to the trunks of skeletal trees, stretching and pulling, deepening as I passed. They weren't just an absence of light, they were a presence. I felt them brush against my cloak, whispering against my skin. I clutched Leo tighter. He hadn't moved. His little face, visible in the pale moonlight, was a waxy gray-blue. "Hang on, baby," I sobbed, my tears freezing on my cheeks. "Mama's here. Just hang on." My mind was screaming at me to turn back. Every pack law, every instinct, told me I was walking into my own grave. The Shadow Walker. The outcast Alpha. They said he was driven mad by his own power, that he sacrificed pack members who strayed too close, feeding their souls to the darkness he commanded. But the thought of Leo's still, cold body in my arms was more terrifying than any myth. I stumbled over a root that looked more like a skeletal claw reaching from the earth. I fell to my knees, the impact jarring a small, weak moan from Leo. He was alive. "Okay," I gasped, forcing myself up. "Okay, Leo. I've got you." The land twisted. There was no path, but the trees seemed to be hurting me, their grasping branches forcing me in one direction. The shadows here were so deep that the moonlight couldn't touch the ground. It felt like I was wading through a cold, dark river. I could feel the magic of this place. It was ancient, wild, and utterly indifferent to me. After what felt like hours, I saw it. Through a break in the gnarled trees, there was a cabin. It was a dark shape against the darkness, built from logs as black as the shadows themselves. No smoke came from the chimney. No light shone from the windows. It looked as dead as the forest around it. But I knew he was here. I could feel him. A weight. A pressure. An awareness that made the hairs on my arms stand up. My legs were shaking so hard I could barely walk the last few feet. I reached the door, a heavy slab of dark wood, and raised a trembling fist. I didn't get the chance to knock. The door swung open on silent hinges. He was there. The stories had not done him justice. He wasn't a monster. He was worse. He was a man, which made the monster in him all the more terrifying. He was huge, filling the entire doorway. Taller than any man I had ever seen, with shoulders so broad they seemed to block out the world. He wore simple black pants and a worn gray shirt, but the clothes couldn't hide the sheer power rolling off him in waves. His hair was black and fell just past his jaw, as wild as the woods he lived in. But his eyes were the color of a bruised twilight sky, a deep, shadowy violet, and they glowed with a faint, chilling light of their own. And the shadows in the cabin weren't around him. They were on him. They clung to his shoulders like a living cloak, twining around his arms, whispering at his feet. He just watched me. His face was hard, carved from granite, and utterly emotionless. He didn't look surprised. He looked inevitable. I stood there, frozen, a pathetic, weeping Omega clutching a dying child. Please, I finally choked out. The word was ripped from my throat. Please, you have to help me. His violet eyes flicked down to the bundle in my arms, then back to my face. He said nothing. The silence was deafening, a crushing weight. The matriarch, I stammered, tears blurring my vision. Eleonora. She cursed him. He's my son. He's dying. Please. I fell to my knees, right there on his doorstep, the cold and the fear finally breaking me. I held my son out to him, an offering. A sacrifice. I'll do anything, I wept. Anything. Just heal him. Please heal my son. He stepped out of the doorway. The shadows moved with him, a writhing, living aura. He knelt in front of me, his sighs blotting out the moon. I flinched, terrified he would strike Leo. He ignored me. His gaze was fixed on Leo. Slowly, he reached out a hand. His fingers were long, calloused, and stained with shadow. He gently brushed Leo's hair back from his forehead. His touch was so light I barely saw it. When he pulled his hand back, a wisp of the black, cursed magic was clinging to his fingertips like a strand of spider silk. He looked at it, his expression unreadable, then let it dissolve into the shadows on his arm. He looked at me. His voice, when he finally spoke, was deeper than I could have imagined. A low, gravelly rumble that vibrated in my bones. I can heal him. Relief crashed over me so hard I almost fainted. Thank you, I sobbed. Thank you, God, thank you. I have not finished, he cut me off. His voice was not cruel, just absolute. I froze. The price. What? I whispered, my blood turning to ice. Money? I have no money. But I can work. I can be your servant, I can clean, I do not need a servant, Lena. He knew my name. The sound of it in his dark voice sent a shiver of pure dread down my spine. The matriarch's curse is strong, he said, his violet eyes locked on mine. It is bound to his blood. To your blood. To break it, I must bind his life to a stronger magic. A stronger bloodline. I didn't understand. What do you mean? He rose to his full, terrifying height, a mountain of shadow and power. I will heal your son, he said, his voice flat and final. He will be under my protection. The matriarch will never touch him again. Yes, I breathed. Please. But the price is not your service. The price is you. My heart stopped. Me? To bind him to my bloodline, the Shadow Walker said, his gaze pinning me to the ground. He must be of my bloodline. He will become my son. His meaning crashed into me. No, I don't. Heal my son, he repeated my own words back to me. I will. But the price is your hand in marriage. You will be my wife. Bound by blood oath. Forever. I stared at him, horror and disbelief warring with the desperate, dying hope in my chest. He wanted me. A marriage. A blood oath, something not even the matriarch could break. She will kill us both, I whispered. She can try, he said, and for the first time, a flicker of something dark and dangerous crossed his face. I have wanted a reason to face her for a long time. You have just given me one. He looked down at Leo, whose breathing was so shallow I wasn't even sure it was there. You have a choice, Lena, he said, his voice softer, but no less firm. Let him die in your arms, free. Or let him live, bound to me. Bound to us. I looked at my son's face, gray and still. I thought of Eleonora's cold eyes. An acceptable loss. I looked up at the terrifying, shadow-bound Alpha who offered me an impossible choice. I had no choice at all. Do it, I whispered, the words tasting like ash. Heal him. I accept. Chapter 2. Silas, I didn't even know his name yet. He was just him, nodded once, as if I had merely agreed to the time of day. There was no triumph in his expression, no satisfaction. Just a grim acceptance. He bent and, with a gentleness that seemed impossible for his size, scooped Leo from my arms. My arms felt instantly, agonizingly empty. A raw, animal sound of protest tore from my throat. Wait. He must be taken to the heart of the Shadowlands, Silas said, not pausing. He held Leo against his broad chest, and the living shadows that clung to him moved, swirling around my son's small, frail body, covering him like a blanket. I scrambled to my feet, my legs numb. Where are you going? What are you doing to him? The curse is rooted deep. It must be pulled out by a power deeper still. He turned and walked, not back into his cabin, but deeper into the black, twisted woods. No, take me with you. I ran after him, stumbling over the shadowed roots. You cannot follow where I am going, Lena, he said over his shoulder. His voice was flat, but it held an iron command. The heart of this place would unmake you. He's my son. I cried, lunging for him. He stopped and turned. The shadows around him writhed, and the temperature dropped 20 degrees. His violet eyes flashed with a power that froze me in place. He will not be your son for much longer if you stop me, he said, his voice a low growl. He has minutes. This place you stand in? This is just the porch. The real Shadowlands are within. I am the only one who can walk there. I am the only one who can bring him back. He looked at my terrified, tear-streaked face. For a heartbeat, the hard lines of his mouth softened, just a fraction. I gave you my word. I will heal him. Wait in the cabin. Bar the door. Nothing out here will harm what is mine, but it will try. What is mine? The words echoed in the dead silent air. He didn't just mean the cabin. He meant me. Before I could answer, he turned. He didn't just walk into the darkness. He stepped into a patch of shadow under a gnarled oak, and heat dissolved. He and Leo vanished. One moment they were there, and the next, there was nothing but the black, empty woods. I stood there, shaking, my arms wrapped around my own empty chest. The silence he left behind was worse than his terrifying presence. I was alone in a forest of living shadows, having just handed my dying child to a monster. A whisper slithered past my ear. So cold. I yelped and spun around. Nothing. Just the trees. But the shadows were moving again, creeping closer, no longer held back by their master. She is alone. No, I whimpered. I scrambled back to the cabin, threw myself inside, and slammed the heavy door. I fumbled for the bar, a thick, heavy piece of iron, and dropped it into place. The cabin was one large room, dark and surprisingly clean. A simple cot sat in one corner, a stone fireplace in another. There was a table, 2 chairs, and shelves carved into the walls, holding strange, dried herbs and dark, leather-bound books. It smelled of ozone, old parchment, and something wild, like a storm trapped indoors. It smelled like him. I backed into the furthest corner, sinking to the floor and pulling my knees to my chest. And I waited. Every sound made me jump. The creak of the logs. The whistle of wind at the chimney. But the worst sounds were the ones that shouldn't have been there. A light, dry scratching at the door. Skitter, skitter, scratch. Let us in, little mouse, a dozen voices whispered, right outside the wood. He won't be back. He's eaten the boy. He'll eat you next. He'll be back, I whispered, pressing my hands over my ears. He's coming back. But what if they were right? What if this was the price? A moment of hope, and then he'd take Leo and disappear, leaving me to be torn apart by the horrors in his front yard? Hours passed. Or maybe it was only minutes. Time moved like thick tar in this place. The scratching at the door became more frantic. I heard something heavy throw itself against the wood, making the iron bar groan. Give her to U.S. Walker. A voice boomed, shaking the very foundation of the cabin. The meat is fresh. I screamed, burying my face in my knees. I was going to die here. And then silence. It fell so suddenly, it was louder than the noise. The scratching stopped. The whispering voices went silent. The heavy thudding ceased. I held my breath. The iron bar on the door lifted, scraping against the wood. It didn't lift by my hand. It lifted on its own, rising up and setting itself gently on the floor. The door swung open. Silas stood there. His shirt was torn and dark, shadowy energy was steaming off his shoulders. He looked exhausted. His face was pale, his violet eyes dim. And in his arms, Leo was stirring. I gasped. I didn't dare believe it. Leo's eyes fluttered open. The waxy, gray-blue color was gone. His skin was pale, but it was a living pale. He looked around, confused, his gaze landing on the giant holding him. "Mama," he whispered, his voice weak, but his. "Leo." I scrambled across the floor, collapsing at Silas's feet. "Oh, God, Leo." Leo's eyes found me, and a tiny smile touched his lips. The black, spidery lines on his neck? Gone. Completely gone. As if they had never been. Silas looked down at me, his chest heaving. "The curse is broken," he said, his voice rough with fatigue. "It is done." He gently passed my son to me, and I clutched him, burying my face in his hair, sobbing with a relief so profound it was painful. He was warm. He was warm. "Mama, who is that?" Leo whispered, his hand weakly gripping my shirt. "He's big." "He's the man who saved you, baby," I whispered, kissing his forehead. I looked up at Silas, my heart so full of gratitude I thought it would burst. "Thank you." I don't know how to thank you." Silas watched me, his expression unreadable. The shadows around him settled, quieting. He looked from Leo's face to mine. "He is weak, but he will recover," Silas said. "The curse is gone. Eleonora's magic has no hold on him here. He is safe." "Thank you," I said again, my voice thick. "You should rest," he said, gesturing to the cot. "Both of you." I carried Leo. He felt heavier already, more substantial, and laid him on the cot, pulling the thick fur blankets over him. He was asleep again almost instantly, but it was a true, healthy sleep. Not the coma he'd been in. I stood by the cot for a long moment, just watching him breathe. When I finally turned, Silas was standing right behind me. I jumped, startled. I hadn't even heard him move. He was so close. I had to crane my neck to look up at him. The exhaustion was fading from his face, replaced by that carved, granite stillness. "He is healed," Silas said, his voice a low rumble. "Yes," I whispered, my gratitude warring with a sudden, cold dread returning to my stomach. "The curse is broken." "Yes." "Then the dead is due," he said. "The bargain is sealed." I swallowed, my throat dry. I had been so focused on Leo, I had forgotten what I'd agreed to. I am your wife," I whispered, the words sounding alien and insane. "Not yet," he said. "A vow made in desperation is not a true binding. A blood oath must be given freely. But it must be given now." He held out his hand. In his palm rested a small, wicked-looking knife with a handle made of dark, polished wood. "You said you accepted, Lena," he said, his violet eyes holding mine. "You said you would do anything. Did you mean it?" My gaze flicked to Leo, sleeping peacefully, his chest rising and falling. I thought of Eleonora's face. An acceptable loss. I turned back to Silas. This terrifying man who had walked into the heart of darkness for my son. I was an Omega. I had no power, no pack, no protection. And I had a son who was a walking target for the most powerful wolf in our territory. Now I had an out. A terrifying, monstrous out. "I meant it," I said, my voice shaking, but firm. I placed my hand in his. His skin was calloused, but his hand was steady and warm, engulfing mine. Chapter 3. His thumb brushed over my palm, a simple, assessing touch that sent a strange jolt up my arm. His eyes never left mine, searching for something. Doubt. Regret. Fear. I'm sure he found all three, but I held his gaze. Could not be weak now. "Good," he rumbled. He didn't use the knife on me. He turned my hand over, and with a sharp, black-alone nail on his other hand, he drew a shallow line across his own palm. Dark, crimson blood welled up instantly. Then, he did the same to me. It was so fast, I barely felt it, a quick, stinging line. My own blood, bright red, rose to the surface. Before I could react, he pressed his bleeding palm against mine. "With this blood, I bind you," he said, his voice resonating with a power that shook the very air in the cabin. The shadows on the walls stirred, darkening, leaning in to listen. "I, Silas, Alpha of the Shadowlands, take you, Lena, of no bloodline, as my mate. Your life is now my life. Your son is now my son. Your enemies are now my enemies." His blood was hot against mine, almost burning. A jolt of pure energy shot up my arm, making my heart slam against my ribs. It wasn't just a promise. I could feel it. A bond, heavy and unbreakable, snapping into place around my soul. "Speak the words, Lena," he commanded, his voice softer, but no less firm. "Bind yourself to me." My hand was trembling, locked in his. I looked at the dark, powerful man before me. "My husband." Lena," I stammered, my voice sounding small and thin. "I take you, Silas, as my husband." The words felt thick and strange on my tongue. "My life is your life. My son is your son. Your enemies are my enemies." As I spoke the last word, the magic flared. It was a cold, violet light, the color of his eyes, and it erupted from our joined hands, swirling up our arms and wrapping around us both. I gasped, feeling the invisible chain lock tight. He let go of my hand. The light vanished. It was done. I was married. Bound by a blood oath to the pack's boogeyman. I looked at my palm. The cut was gone. So was his. There wasn't even a scar. There was just a faint, dark mark on my skin, like a shadow of a scar that I knew would never fade. Silas gave a single, satisfied nod. The shadows clinging to his shoulders settled, as if they, too, were pleased. "It is done," he said. He turned and walked to the stone fireplace. He held out his hand, and a ball of violet-black fire ignited in his palm. He tossed it into the hearth, and the wood instantly caught, a silent, shadow-laced fire that gave off a surprising amount of heat. I just stared, my mind reeling. He turned back to me. I must have looked as broken and terrified as I felt, because his hard expression softened again, just slightly. "You are safe here, Lena," he said. "Both of you. Eleonora's power cannot cross my threshold. No one will harm you here. She will know," I whispered, rubbing my palm. "When she feels the curse is broken, she will know I came to you." "Let her," Silas said. The dark fire in the hearth reflected in his eyes. "She has feared me for 20 years. It is time she was reminded why." He gestured to the cot, where Leo was sleeping soundly, his face already regaining its color. "He is bound to my bloodline now. She cannot curse him again. He is under my protection." "Our protection," I corrected him, the word tasting strange. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. It was a terrifying, beautiful thing, and it vanished as quickly as it came. Yes, ours. The next few hours were a blur. I sat in the chair by the fire, my body humming with a strange, nervous energy from the blood oath. Silas, my husband, moved about the cabin. He brought me a bowl of thick, hearty stew. I hadn't realized I was starving until I smelled it. I ate, my eyes never leaving him. He was quiet. He wasn't the monster I had imagined. He was silent, watchful, and moved with a grace that was almost predatory. He checked on Leo once, his huge, calloused hand gently brushing against my son's forehead, checking for fever. The gesture was so tender, it made my throat ache. Finally, the exhaustion of the last few weeks, the terror of the night, it all crashed down on me. My eyelids grew heavy. "You should sleep," his voice rumbled from the shadows. I looked at the cot. It was small, barely big enough for Leo and me. Where would he sleep? As if reading my mind, he said, "I do not sleep as you do. I will keep watch." I hesitated. The things outside. The voices. The things outside are shadows, he said, settling into the other chair, the darkness of the corner embracing him until he was almost invisible. They are echoes of fear. They test the boundaries. They will not test you again. They know you are mine now. Mine. I laid down on the cot, curling my body around my son. I could feel Leo's steady, healthy breathing against my chest. I was in a monster's cabin, in a forest of living nightmares, bound to a man who controlled the darkness. And for the first time in 2 years, I felt completely, utterly safe. I fell asleep to the sound of the crackling, shadow fire and the steady, silent presence of my new husband, the Shadow Walker, keeping watch. I woke to screaming. Not my own. It was a man's scream, sharp and full of agony, and it came from outside the cabin. I shot up, my heart pounding. Leo was still fast asleep, undisturbed. The fire was low embers. Silas was gone. The scream came again, and it was cut off with a wet, gurgling sound. I ran to the window, my hands trembling. The pale, gray light of dawn was filtering through the gnarled trees. The snow was no longer pristine. It was trampled and dark. I saw him. Silas. He was standing over 2 men dressed in the Matriarch's black and gray enforcer uniforms. One was on the ground, clearly dead, his neck at an impossible angle. The other was held 6 feet in the air, clutched in a fist made of pure, solid shadow. The shadow hand was squeezing. Who sent you? Silas's voice was not a rumble. It was a blade of ice. The Matriarch. The man choked, his face purple. She felt the curse break. She sent us for the Omega and the boy. You will return to Eleonora, Silas said, his voice deadly calm. You will tell her the Omega and the boy are gone. They're right here. I can see the cabin. You will tell her they are gone, Silas repeated. You will tell her that Lena and her son died in the woods, torn apart by shadows. You will tell her that if she ever sends anyone across my boundary again, I will not send them back in one piece. I will unmake them, and I will feed their screaming souls to the dark. Yes, the man whimpered. Please, yes. And you will show her this, Silas said. He made a fist. The shadow hand squeezed. The man screamed, a high, thin sound, as his arm compressed. The sound of bones cracking like twigs filled the air. Silas let him drop. The man landed in the snow, sobbing, clutching the ruined, flattened mess of his arm. Go, Silas growled. She will know this is my mark. Now go. The man scrambled to his feet and ran, crashing through the woods, his wails fading into the distance. Silas stood there for a long moment, breathing hard, the shadows writhing around him. He looked at the dead enforcer on the ground. He raised his hand, and the shadows of the forest floor rose up, swallowing the body whole. In seconds, there was nothing left but undisturbed snow. He turned, his violet eyes finding me in the window. I wasn't scared. I should have been. I had just watched him murder one man and mutilate another without blinking. But I wasn't scared. I was awed. He had done it for us. He had declared war on the Matriarch for us. He walked to the cabin, his face hard and set. He opened the door and stepped inside, bringing the cold morning air with him. He looked at me, then at Leo, still sleeping soundly. You're awake, he said. It wasn't a question. You killed him, I whispered, stepping away from the window. He was here to kill you, Silas stated, as if it were the simplest fact in the world. He was here to drag your son back to Eleonora. I will not allow that. She knows I'm here. She suspects, he corrected. But she is afraid of me. That fear is your shield. I have just reminded her why she should be. He walked past me and started to build the fire up again. His hands, the same hands that had just crushed a man's arm, were steady as he added logs. I was a prisoner. I had traded one cage for another. But my first jailer had wanted my son dead. This one had just killed to keep him alive. She won't stop, will she? I asked, my voice small. No, Silas said. not looking at me. She will not. He stood up, the new flames casting dancing shadows on his hard face. But neither will I. You are my wife, Lena. He is my son. I protect what is mine. Chapter 4. The realization that I was now the Matriarch's declared enemy, shielded only by a man who was essentially a living weapon, settled over me like a shroud. The cabin, which had felt like a sanctuary just hours before, now felt like a very small, very fragile fortress. Leo woke up soon after. He sat up, blinked, and looked around the dark, unfamiliar room with wide eyes. Mama? I'm right here, baby. I rushed to the cot and hugged him so tight he grunted. How do you feel? Does anything hurt? He squirmed in my arms, his face wrinkling. I'm hungry. And who's that? He was pointing right at Silas, who stood near the fire, watching us. To my son, who had no memory of the last 3 weeks, he was just a terrifyingly large stranger in his pajamas. That's Silas, I said, trying to sound calm. He's the one who made you better, Leo. He lives here. Silas moved and Leo flinched, shrinking back against me. He's really big, Mama. He is, I said. But he's a friend. Silas knelt, a slow, deliberate movement that still seemed impossibly graceful. He was now at Leo's eye level. His violet eyes, which I had only ever seen as hard or exhausted, softened as he looked at my son. Hello, Leo, Silas rumbled. His voice was softer than I'd ever heard it. I am Silas. Leo hid his face in my side. I stroked his hair. It's okay, baby. He's safe. Silas didn't try to get closer. He just watched. You were very sick, he said. Do you remember? Leo peeked out. I remember being cold and sleepy and a bad dream about a mean lady, Eleonora. My blood ran cold. He had been aware. The mean lady is gone, Silas said, his voice flat and certain. She cannot get you here. You are safe. Are you a giant? Leo asked, his curiosity finally winning over his fear. A small smile touched Silas's mouth. Something like that. Can you touch the ceiling? Almost, Silas said, standing up. He held out his hand to Leo. Are you truly hungry? Leo nodded, glancing at me for permission. I nodded. Silas's hand was huge, but his movements were gentle as he helped Leo off the cot. My son was wobbly, but he was standing. Just yesterday, his legs had been useless, cold limbs. Silas fed him the same stew he had given me. Leo, who hadn't eaten a real meal in weeks, devoured it. And so, our strange, impossible life began. The next few days were a tense education. I learned that Silas was not just a shadow walker. He was the Shadowlands. The dark, sentient forest was an extension of his will. The monsters I'd heard were parts of him, manifestations of his power and the forest's dark consciousness. He was, in every sense of the word, an outcast. He told me, in his quiet, rumbling way, that he had been born with this power. It was an ancient magic, something the modern pack didn't understand and therefore feared. Eleonora's mother had been the one to banish him, but Eleonora, with her lust for pure, clean bloodlines and absolute control, had made it her mission to paint him as a soulless demon. She is afraid, he explained one evening, as we sat by the fire and Leo slept peacefully. Her magic comes from blood bindings and pack law. Mine comes from the earth, from the dark between the stars. She cannot control it. And so she fears it. She cast you out, I whispered. I let her, he corrected, his violet eyes flashing. It was easier to be here, alone. Until now, I said softly. His gaze on me was heavy. Until now. The tension in the cabin was thick enough to cut. I was married to this man. We slept in the same room. He on a makeshift bed of furs he'd created near the fire, and me on the cot with our son. We were two strangers bound by the most intimate of vows, yet we barely spoke. He was considerate. He made sure we had food. He kept the fire roaring, the shadow flames casting a warm, purple light. He would even play with Leo. Leo, with the pure innocence of a child, was not afraid of him. Not after the first day. He was fascinated. "Do the shadow thing," Leo would demand. And Silas, my terrifying, murderous husband, would hold out his hand and let the shadows swirl, forming shapes for my son, a wolf, a bird, a dragon. Leo would laugh and clap, trying to catch the shadows in his little hands. Watching them, my heart felt like it was being squeezed. This monster was gentler with my son than anyone in my old pack had ever been. On the fourth day, the attack came. It wasn't enforcers. It was smarter. I was outside with Leo, just a few steps from the cabin. Silas had said it was safe as long as we stayed close. Leo was throwing a snowball at a tree. Suddenly, he cried out and grabbed his chest. "Leo?" I yelled, running to him. He was pale, his eyes wide with fear. "Mama, it's cold. Like the dream." I looked down. On his coat, over his heart, a frost pattern was forming. A dark, ugly sigil. Eleonora's mark. "Silas!" I screamed, snatching Leo into my arms. "Silas!" The cabin door burst open. Silas was out in a flash, his face a mask of cold fury. He saw the sigil, and a growl ripped from his chest, a sound that was not human. "She is trying to break the bond," he snarled. "She is attacking him through you." "What? How?" "Your blood. You are his mother. You are not yet fully bound to me." He grabbed my arm. "She is using your old pack bond as a doorway. What do we do?" I cried. Leo was whimpering, the frost spreading. "We complete the marriage," he said, his voice grim. "What?" I thought the blood oath. The blood oath bound our lives. Our magic. But you're still fighting it. You're still, in your heart, of her pack. You must choose, Lena. Fully. Now." He pulled me toward him, his hands on my shoulders. "She thinks you are my weakness. That I will fail to protect you. She is wrong." The frost on Leo's chest was turning black. My son cried out in pain. "What do I do?" I pleaded. "Let me in," he said, his violet eyes burning into mine. "Stop being afraid of me. Trust me. You are my wife. Be my wife." It wasn't a request for my body. It was a request for my soul. The final link in the chain. I looked at my son, dying again in my arms. I looked at this powerful, terrifying man who had been nothing but gentle and protective. "I trust you," I whispered. And I meant it. I let go of the last thread of fear, the last tie to my old life. I chose him. The moment I did, the magic flared. I felt it, a snap inside my chest. A warm, powerful connection, the one I'd been fighting, flooded through me. It was his power, his life, and it wrapped around mine. At the same time, Silas's hands became wreathed in black, swirling shadow. He didn't touch Leo. He placed his hands on me, on my shoulders. "Eleonora!" he roared, and his voice wasn't just his. It was the voice of the entire forest, of the shadows themselves. "He is mine. She is mine. You will not have them." He pushed his power into me. I screamed as the raw, dark magic surged through me, not harming me, but using me as a conduit. It poured from me into Leo, and the black sigil on his chest cracked. Then, in the woods, 50 yards away, a man screamed. It was the same shriek I'd heard from the enforcer. A blast of golden energy, Eleonora's magic, shot from the trees, aimed at my head. I didn't even have time to flinch. Silas moved. He spun, pulling me behind him, and raised his hand. A wall of solid, midnight black shadow erupted from the ground, catching the blast. The wall didn't even crack. "You are weak, old woman," Silas hissed into the forest. "You send your puppets to do your work. Come yourself, if you dare." There was a frantic scrambling sound, and then silence. The attack was over. I was panting, my legs shaking. Leo, in my arms, blinked. The sigil was gone. "Mama," he whispered, his voice shaky. "I'm warm again." I looked at Silas. He was breathing hard, the shadows slowly receding from his body. He had just shielded me, used me as a channel for his power, and fought off the Matriarch, all in about 10 seconds. He turned to me, his eyes searching my face. "Are you hurt?" "No," I whispered, my voice trembling. I felt it. "Your power." "It is our power now," he said, his voice low. He gently touched my cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't known I'd shed. "You are truly my wife now, Lena. The bond is complete." I stared at him, my heart doing a strange, fluttering dance. He had called me his weakness. He had defended me like I was his strength. He was still touching my face, his expression unreadable. I wasn't afraid of his touch. I wasn't afraid of him. "She will be back," I said. "Yes," he said, his hand dropping. "But she will come for me now. Not for you. And she will not be so polite." Chapter 5. The completion of the bond changed everything. It wasn't just a magical shield, it was a connection. I could feel him now, a steady, warm presence at the edge of my mind. It was a low, thrumming hum, like a distant storm or a deep, powerful heartbeat. It was no longer just his cabin I was in, it was his territory, and I was now, intrinsically, a part of it. The shadows in the cabin, which I had always found unsettling, now felt protective. They no longer whispered. They hummed. They would brush past my ankles like friendly cats. Leo, now fully recovered, would laugh as they played with him, the tendrils of darkness letting him chase them across the floor. Life with Silas settled into a new, strange domesticity. We were husband and wife. And we were complete strangers. The silence between us was no longer a tense, fearful one. It was awkward. I was acutely aware of him, of his size, of his quiet, watchful presence. I was aware of the way his shirt stretched across his shoulders when he chopped wood, the way his violet eyes would soften when he looked at Leo, the way he would sometimes just watch me. I found myself watching him too. I had married a monster to save my son. But the monster was not a monster. He was just Silas. He was quiet, yes. He was devastatingly powerful, yes. But he was also gentle. He was patient. He carved a small wooden wolf for Leo, his huge, scarred hands working the wood with surprising delicacy. He taught me which herbs in the Shadowlands were safe, which roots to pull for stew, which mushrooms glowed in the dark. "Why?" I asked him one night after Leo was asleep. The three of us now shared the cot, a decision made for warmth and, on my part, a strange, unspoken need to be near this new, solid center of my life. Silas lay on his back, his hands behind his head, and I lay beside him, with Leo curled between us. "Why what, Lena?" His voice rumbled in the dark. "Why me? Why a marriage? You could have asked for anything. You could have just taken me. You're strong enough." He was silent for a long time. The only sound was the crackling shadow fire. "I have been alone for 20 years, he finally said, his voice low. "The shadows are company, but they are cold. They are echoes. They are not warm." He turned his head on the fur pillow, and I could feel his gaze on me in the darkness. "I watched you," he confessed, and a shiver went down my spine. "From the day your husband died. I watched you struggle. I watched Eleonora isolate you. I watched you grieve. And I watched you fight for him. He had been watching me for 2 years. I saw the Matriarch's curse on your son," he continued. "I knew she had done it. And I knew you would come. You knew." "I hoped," he corrected. "I knew it was the only way. You were the only one desperate enough, the only one with nothing left to lose. You would be the only one brave enough to walk into my woods. So you used my desperation?" I whispered, a chill creeping into my heart. "Yes," he said, without shame. "I used it to save your son's life. and to end my own solitude. He paused, and his voice dropped even lower. Was the price too high, Lena? Your son is alive. He is laughing. He is safe. Eleonora wanted you broken and him dead. I wanted you, here, with me. I didn't know what to say to that. The raw, simple honesty of it stole my breath. He hadn't tricked me. He had offered me the one thing I wanted in the world, Leo's life, in exchange for the one thing he wanted. Company. A family. She banished you because of your power, I said, changing the subject, my heart beating too fast. But what is it? Why do they call you a shadow walker? He was quiet for a moment. My power is not clean. It is not the pack's magic. It is the magic of the in-between. The dark. When my father died, his alpha power was supposed to go to me. I was the strongest of his sons. But Eleonora, his new mate, our new matriarch, could not control me. So she poisoned the pack against you, I breathed. She told them my power was a disease. That I consorted with demons. That I was a shadow walker, a name meant as a curse. She convinced them I was a threat, he said, his voice flat, devoid of self-pity. I was a threat. To her. I could see the rot in her. The hunger for power. So I left. I came here, to the one part of the territory that answered my magic, not hers. I let her have the pack. I took the shadows. He had sacrificed everything to stop the civil war. He wasn't an outcast. He was an exile. A wave of something washed over me. It was a fierce, hot anger for him. She had taken his pack, his home, his life, and painted him as a monster, all to protect her own power. She's the monster, I whispered. She is a matriarch, he said, as if that explained everything. And she will not allow a challenge to her power to live. She will not allow me to live, now that I have proven her magic can be broken. Now that I have a family. A perceived weakness. Am I? I asked, turning to face him. Am I your weakness, Silas? I could just make out his face in the dim, violet light of the embers. He looked at me, his eyes glowing faintly. He raised a hand, his fingers brushing the hair back from my face. His touch was hesitant, as if he was afraid I would flinch. I didn't. I leaned into his touch. His thumb brushed my lower lip. You were. When you first came. When you were not fully mine. She could have used you to destroy me. His hand moved, cupping my jaw. His skin was warm. And now? I whispered, my voice trembling. Now, he rumbled, his face moving closer to mine. You are my strength, Lena. You are the anchor that holds my shadows. You are the warmth. And then he kissed me. It was not a soft, tentative kiss. It was a kiss of 20 years of solitude. It was hungry and desperate and raw. It was a claim. It was the sealing of our bargain, not with blood, but with fire. I didn't pull away. I kissed him back. I poured all my gratitude, my fear, my anger, and this new, strange, fierce longing into it. I clutched the front of his shirt, my husband, my savior, my terrifying, gentle monster. He growled deep in his chest, a sound of pure possession, and pulled me against him. The connection between us, the one at the edge of my mind, exploded, no longer a hum, but a symphony. I was his. In every way. And I was glad. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. He rested his forehead against mine. Mine, he whispered, a statement of fact. Yours, I breathed back. Leo stirred in his sleep between us, blissfully unaware, and snuggled closer to my side. Silas's hand found mine in the dark, our fingers lacing together. It was a simple, profoundly intimate gesture. She will come for us, Lena, he said, his voice grim, the moment of passion fading. She will not send puppets next time. She will come herself. When? Soon. She cannot let this stand. She will try to take Leo again. A cold dread snaked around my newfound warmth. What can she do? You said he's safe. He's bound to you. He is, Silas said. But she is clever. She will not use a curse. She will use the pack law. She will come, and she will demand a challenge. Not against me. Against you. My blood ran cold. Me? But I'm an Omega. I have no power. You are my wife, he said, his hand tightening on mine. You are the lady of the Shadowlands. And in her eyes, you're a traitor who stole pack property, your son. She will challenge you for custody of the boy. A trial by combat. A fight she knows you cannot win. A fight? She would kill me. To get him. Yes, Silas said, his voice flat. And by her law, if you die, your son reverts to the pack's custody. To her custody. It is the one loophole she has. But I can't fight her, I said, panic rising. She's the matriarch. She'll destroy me. You will not fight her, he said, his voice turning to ice. I will. But you can't. If she challenges me, I will not let her harm you, he growled. I will tear her apart before she can lay a hand on you. Law or no law. Silas, if you do that, I whispered, the terrible truth dawning on me. If you attack her, the entire pack will turn on you. They'll see you as the monster she's always said you were. They'll hunt you. They'll hunt us. We'll never be safe. He was silent. He knew I was right. He had fallen into her trap. By saving us, by binding us to him, he had given her the one weapon that could destroy him. Not his shadows, not his magic. Me. Chapter 6. The waiting was the worst part. Every snap of a twig, every sigh of the wind, sent a jolt of panic through me. We had maybe a day, Silas had said. Eleonora would not wait. She would let the news of the enforcer's failure spread, let the pack's fear of Silas build, and then she would act, painting herself as the righteous savior. Leo was oblivious, playing with his wooden wolf by the fire. The sight of him, so happy and healthy, solidified the cold, hard knot of resolve in my stomach. I had not come this far, I had not survived this long, to lose him now. I can't fight her, Silas, I said, my voice quiet. We were standing by the window, watching the gray, dead woods. But I won't let you kill her. I won't let you become the monster she says you are. There has to be another way. There is no other way, Lena, he said, his jaw tight. She wants a fight. She will have one. No. She wants a legal fight. She's using the law. So we have to use it too. He looked down at me, his violet eyes shadowed with confusion. What law? She is the law. No, I said, a faint, desperate idea beginning to form. The matriarch is the law. But the pack charter, it says a matriarch's challenge can be deferred. Answered by a champion. I am your champion, Lena, he growled. No. If you fight, you're the alpha of the Shadowlands attacking the pack matriarch. That's a declaration of war. But if someone else fights, someone who is also of the pack. There is no one, he said, his voice flat. Who would dare stand against her for you? My heart was hammering. I don't know. But she can't just do this. There has to be a witness. A challenge has to be seen by the pack council. She can't just murder me in the woods. She won't come alone, Silas said. She will bring her council. Her enforcers. She will make it a public spectacle. As if summoned by his words, the air outside changed. The low hum of the forest went silent. A new pressure, a golden, oppressive magic, pressed against the cabin. Eleonora's magic. Leo looked up, his smile fading. Mama? It's the cold lady. I can feel her. Silas moved, putting himself between us and the door. She is here. A voice, amplified by magic, echoed through the trees. It was Eleonora, cold and clear. Silas. Outcast. You have stolen pack property. You have harbored a traitor and her half-blood whelp. By the law of this pack, I am here to reclaim them. They are not yours to reclaim. Silas roared back, his own voice making the cabin walls shake. They are under my protection. They are my family. Family? Eleonora's laugh was like breaking glass. A monster does not have a family. You have taken a weak, pathetic Omega and her cursed child. You have bound them with your dark magic. You give me no choice but to cleanse this forest of your taint. Enforcers, secure the cabin. We heard them, dozens of them, crashing through the woods. Stay behind me, both of you, Silas ordered. He was radiating power, the shadows in the room boiling off his skin. No, I said, grabbing his arm. Silas, wait. Don't. This is what she wants. She wants you to fight. She wants to prove you're a mindless beast. Don't do it. She is at my door, Lena. Then let me answer it. Before he could stop me, I ran to the door and threw it open. I stepped out into the cold, gray light. Eleonora stood 20 yards away, a picture of grace and power, wrapped in white furs. Behind her stood her council of 5 alphas and at least 30 enforcers, all armed. Lena, Eleonora said, a cruel smile on her lips. You look, well. The darkness suits you. Now, step aside. We are here for the boy. And for you. You will stand trial for treason. Silas was right behind me, a wall of pure shadow and rage. You will not touch her, he growled. Ah. The monster speaks, Eleonora sneered. And he hides behind a woman. How pathetic. I am not hiding behind him, I said, my voice shaking, but loud. I am standing with him. He is my husband. The council alphas gasped. Eleonora's eyes widened in genuine shock, before narrowing in pure hatred. You married it? You bound yourself to this thing? You are more defiled than I thought. He healed my son, I shouted, my voice cracking. A son you cursed. You, who preach of pack purity and strength. You, who would murder a child in his sleep. You are the monster, Eleonora. A wave of her golden power shot out, slamming into me. It wasn't a killing blow, it was a punishment. It threw me off my feet, and I landed hard in the snow. Lena, Silas roared. Before he could move, I scrambled to my feet. No, Silas. Don't. I stood, my lip bleeding, and faced Eleonora. You want him? You want my son? Then you will challenge me for him. As the law demands. Eleonora's smile was predatory. This was exactly what she wanted. Indeed. I, Matriarch Eleonora, challenge you, Lena, the traitor, for the life and custody of the boy Leo. Trial by combat. Here. Now. I accept, I whispered. No. Silas roared. He stepped in front of me, a wall of fury. You will not harm her. You want a trial? You will fight me. The law is clear, outcast, Eleonora said, her eyes gleaming. The challenge is to the mother. You have no say. Unless you want to break the law? Attack me? In front of my entire council? Show them the beast you are? Do it, Silas. Give me the excuse I need to put you down for good. He was trapped. I could feel the warring impulses in him. The rage, the magic, the desperation. He began. I have a champion, I said suddenly. Eleonora paused. What? The law, I stammered, praying I was right. It says I can. I can name a champion. To fight in my place. Eleonora's smile faded. She had not expected this. You have no one, foolish girl. Who would fight for you? Him. She pointed at Silas. If he fights, he declares war. The council will authorize his execution. Not him, I said, my heart in my throat. I looked past her, past the enforcers, to one of the alphas on her council. He was an older man, with a grim face and honest eyes. Alpha Marcus. He had been my husband's, Robert's, closest friend. He had been forced to stand by and watch me be ostracized. I call Alpha Marcus, I said, my voice ringing out in the clearing. I call him as my champion. Marcus's face went white. Eleonora spun to look at him, her eyes wide with fury. Marcus? You will not. You are my counsel. Marcus, I pleaded, my eyes locking with his. Robert saved your life. I know he did. He took the blow that was meant for you from the mountain cat. He died for you. Eleonora cursed his son. She is trying to murder his son. For Robert. For the pack. Please. Be my champion. Marcus looked at me. He looked at the matriarch. He looked at Leo, who was watching, terrified, from the cabin doorway. Marcus, Eleonora warned, her voice a low hiss. Marcus closed his eyes for 1 second. Then he opened them. He looked at Eleonora. Matriarch, he said, his voice firm. The girl is right. You cursed a pack child. That is against all law. I will be her champion. Traitor! Eleonora shrieked. You dare? I will have your head for this. Then you will have to take it, Marcus said. He drew his knife and stepped forward. I stand for Lena and for the blood of Robert. I will fight you, matriarch. Eleonora was shaking with rage. She had been outplayed. If she fought Marcus, a respected alpha, and won, it was a fair challenge. If she lost, then you will die with her, she screamed and she lunged. It wasn't a fight. It was an execution. Eleonora was too fast, too strong. Her magic was golden and fiery. Marcus was brave, but he was just a wolf. She slammed him with a blast of power, sending him flying into a tree. He slumped, groaning. Pathetic, Eleonora spat. And now for you. She advanced on me. No champion. No alpha. Just you, me, and the law. No. Silas's voice. It was quiet. Deadly. He stepped forward. You will not touch her. And you, outcast, will not touch me, Eleonora sneered. Or your new family will be hunted for eternity. You are right, Silas said. I will not touch you. He raised his hand. But they will. From the woods, from the ground, from the shadows of the trees, they rose. Not just whispers. Not just echoes. Figures. Dozens of them. Tall, vaguely human shapes made of pure, solid shadow, with glowing violet eyes. They were the souls of the Shadowlands. The ancient ones. The enforcers screamed. The council alphas stumbled back in terror. What is this? Eleonora stammered, her power faltering. This is my pack, Silas said. This is my law. You are on my land, matriarch. And you are not welcome. The shadow figures surrounded her. They didn't touch her. They just stood there. A silent, terrifying, undead army. You are a necromancer, she whispered, her face pale. A demon. I am the Shadow Walker, Silas said. And my wife, my son, are under my protection. You have challenged my mate. You have lost. Your champion failed. He pointed at Marcus, who was stirring. Now, get off my land. And if you ever come back, if you ever touch anyone from my bloodline again, I will not stop at my borders. I will come to your great hall, Eleonora. And I will unmake you in front of your entire pack. Am I understood? Eleonora stared at the shadow figures. She stared at Silas, who was radiating a dark, ancient power that made her own golden magic look like a candle in a hurricane. She didn't say a word. She just turned. She helped Marcus to his feet, and with her council and her terrified enforcers, she fled. The shadow figures watched them go, then slowly, one by one, dissolved back into the earth. Silence. I stood there, shaking. It was over. I turned to Silas. He was watching me, his face unreadable. You could have done that all along, I whispered. Summoned them. Yes, he said. Why didn't you? Because you had to fight her, he said, his voice low. You had to face her. You had to break her hold on you. And you did. He walked to me, his violet eyes soft. You stood against her, Lena. You used her own law against her. You were magnificent. He cupped my face, and I leaned into his touch, my whole body trembling with relief. Is it over? She will not be back, he said. She knows now. She knows what I am. And she knows what you are. What am I? I whispered. You are the Lady of the Shadowlands, he rumbled. He kissed my forehead. You are my wife. You are home. I looked at Leo, who was running out of the cabin toward us. Mama, Papa, you are so cool. He ran right to Silas, and my husband, swooped him up, setting him on his shoulders. I looked at my son, healthy and bright. I looked at my husband, the terrifying alpha of the shadows. I had run into the darkness to save my son. I had never expected to find my life. Epilogue. The Shadowlands are beautiful in the spring. I never would have believed it. I thought the darkness was permanent, a stain. But I was wrong. The shadows are soft. When the sun filters through the new, green leaves, the shadows are a deep, welcoming purple, the color of my husband's eyes. They are cool and protective. It has been a year. A year since I ran into the woods with a dying child. A year since I made a desperate bargain. Leo is 8 now, and he is thriving. He is a child of 2 worlds. He has my smile, but he has Silas's power. The shadows adore him. They play with him, hide and seek among the dark pines. He is strong, confident, and for the first time, he is completely, unequivocally happy. He calls Silas Papa, and the way Silas's granite face softens when he hears it, it melts me every time. Alpha Marcus recovered. He is now our ambassador. After Eleonora's defeat, her power was broken. The pack, finally seeing the rot beneath her golden magic, deposed her. Marcus leads the pack now, and there is a tentative, respectful peace between the Packlands and the Shadowlands. They no longer see Silas as a monster. They see him as a king in his own right. And me? I am no longer the weak, weeping Omega. I am the Lady of the Shadowlands. My bond with Silas, with this place, has changed me. My magic, once dormant and useless, has awakened. It is not fire like Eleonora's. It is earth and shadow. I can feel the roots of the trees. I can hear the whispers of the dark. Silas and I, we are one. In every way that matters. I am standing on the porch of our cabin. It's bigger now. We added a room, and I rest a hand on my swollen belly. This child, this daughter, will be born of shadow and light, of pack and magic, of a love I never thought possible. Silas comes up behind me, wrapping his huge arms around me, his chin resting on my head. I can feel the steady, familiar hum of his power, a comforting presence that is now my new north. You're thinking too loud, he rumbles, kissing my hair. I was just remembering, I whisper, leaning back against his solid, warm chest. I was so afraid of you. I know, he says. I was afraid, too. I turn in his arms to look at him. You? Afraid of what? Of you saying no, he says, his violet eyes soft and full of a love that still steals my breath. Of being alone again. Not a chance, I say, and I rise on my toes to kiss him. You are stuck with us, Shadowwalker. Good, he murmurs against my lips. That was the plan. Thank you so much for listening to this story. What part of it did you find the most intriguing? Was it the moment Silas revealed his true power and his shadow pack to Eleonora? Or was it the quiet, domestic moments watching a monster learn to be a father? Let me know in the comments what you thought of Lena's choice. If you enjoyed this, please give this story a like and subscribe to the channel. My channel is still young and trying to grow, and every single subscription is a huge support from you and truly means the world to me. I'm so glad you're here. I'll see you in the next interesting story.